Reset version 1.3 activated, initiating rent protocol. Welcome back, Master Raziel.
What's up, you beautiful bastards, and welcome to my research station. In this video, I'm going to carefully dissect why, as of the last decade or so, we've been seeing a huge surge of remakes, remasters, and reimaginings of older games, some of which are going on decades old. Apologies for the voice, I've been sick lately, but that doesn't mean work doesn't need to be done. Just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, here is a not so comprehensive list of all the most popular remasters and remakes that we have seen announced or released in the last 5 years alone. Reset AI. Initiate bullshit remake list.
Initiating bullshit remake list.
Now, as I said, this list is not a full list. The full list was pages and pages long, and I opted to simply list the most popular and anticipated games. So why are there so many remakes and remasters being released, and why do they tend to be most gamers' most anticipated games? The answer, after my research, is actually quite simple and straightforward. Modern companies are creatively bankrupt, and the vast majority of new games created and released suck ass from a straw. That is the long and short of it. And while I could easily end this video here, I think it's worth digging into why modern games tend to be so incredibly underwhelming, and in most cases, absolute ostrich shit. It all boils down to 5 key reasons, and I will go over each and every single one, so we can all better understand how we got to this point. Reset AI, take it away, baby.
Reason 1. The advent of the internet.
Let me take you back to a simpler time. A time when gaming was in its infancy, but yet produced some of the greatest titles of all time. I'm talking about the late 80s, the 90s, and of course the early 2000s. You see, back before the internet was mainstream and broadband was in every household, game developers, studios, and the games they produced lived and died by the quality of the final product released. Much in the same way that in a Gen 1 MMORPG, for example, each player has a server reputation to maintain. The game studios also had a reputation to uphold, and what state their game released in could not be patched later, fixed, altered, or changed in any way once it hit the store shelves. Games as a service didn't even exist back then, and if a company wanted to make money, their product had to be as bug-free and playable as possible on day one. To top it off, this was still a time where hard copies were the only way you could get your hands on a game, and so the studios and publishers had to make sure they had enough copies to meet demand. This meant much higher costs in distribution, which in turn meant that the investment into release, and releasing a solid product that is, and a complete product on day one, was all the more important. Contrast that to today, where we are constantly inundated with broken and buggy release after broken and buggy release with games, sometimes not even starting or functioning properly, in fact. Game-breaking bugs are just allowed to slide on through because of this point, and most of the major studios have completely gotten rid of their QA testing teams and even charge for betas and alphas and early access to their games, and retarded gamers, and yes, I have been one of them, willfully shell out the money. Now, in the case of indie studios and Kickstarter projects doing this, I'm completely okay with it, as how the fuck else are they going to make money to get the project even rolling? But I digress. The disgusting corporations that are now merely shells of the studios they used to be have absolutely no morality whatsoever, and are only in it for the biggest buck for the least effort. and have no problem releasing games with the mentality of, we will fix it later. Which leads me directly into reason number 2. Razai, throw it up.
Reason 2, AAA studios are soulless shit banks.
Remember earlier when I said in the past, companies had a reputation to uphold. Just take a look at the biggest studios that made a name for themselves in the 90s and early 2000s. Blizzard Entertainment and its sub-studio Blizzard North, Squaresoft, Capcom, Nintendo, Konami, etc. These studios released such outstanding and polished products back in the day that eventually their games sold based off of their reputation alone. If you saw their logo on the box of a game, you knew it was going to be a banger, and it's probably going to be worth every cent of your money. Compare that to what these same studios are now, hollowed out shells of what they once were. Most gamers these days wouldn't piss on any one of them if they were on fire. And it's painfully obvious they wouldn't piss on us either if we were. You see, back in the day, game studios were primarily made up of gamers that wanted to make games for other gamers. It was also a perfect medium for artists of all kinds, voice actors, stuntmen, graphic artists, brilliant composers, and the list goes on and on. In addition, these groups of nerds knew how to tell a story and wanted nothing more than to take the rest of us on an amazing journey through worlds and experiences that even the thought of would make us wake up at midnight bricked up, hoping mom and dad were asleep so we could sneak to the console or PC just to get some extra game time in before school. These days, though, not even a shadow of what was remains. The major AAA companies are all controlled solely by shareholders and suits that have never even played a video game, let alone know fuck all about how to design and sell a good one. They're only interested in your money and how to get it from you with the least amount of effort possible. And at this point, have burned through every last ounce of goodwill that the company's success in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s garnered them. They've chased off all the real talent because of their poorly implemented, unreasonable working conditions, low pay, and DEI bullshit. More on that later. And one of the main ways they destroy nearly every game they touch is my next reason.
Reason 3, microtransactions.
Man, oh man, do these soulless cocksuckers just love ruining everything you love with microtransactions and pay-to-win bullshit. They literally hire psychologists and research teams to figure out how to get each and every man, woman, and child that plays their game addicted to the gambling-infested dopamine hits they call AAA games. They're especially good at roping in the most socially inept and retarded among us.
What happened? There's nothing there! What happened? What happened?
In order to milk as much monetary gain as possible. I've seen video after video where people deduce that many games take tens of thousands of dollars of microtransactions in order to get everything you can in the game. And this goes above and beyond simple skins and cosmetic purchases, which, by the way, they deliberately put all the cool ones behind this paywall, am I right? But many games straight up now are pay to win, granting power, cheats, and skips at the swipe of a credit card. At that point, most gamers with brains figure, why fucking play the game at all then? Long gone are the days where the most powerful and cool-looking items were locked behind exploration, exemplary play, and time investment, and instead have turned in-game success into the same policy EA implemented for its employees when COVID hit. And you know what? They're all backed and supported most by another group of people that are on their payrolls. And these subhuman degenerates that aren't even a shadow of what they once were are next on my list. Razet AI, bring it up.
Reason 4, game journalists.
I'm old enough to remember the glory days of magazines such as Game Informer, Nintendo Power, EGM2, etc. Back then, journalists weren't paid shills that were told what to say and how to say it. They were comprised of real gamers that were very critical of nearly every single aspect of a game design. We gamers relied on their expert opinions because there was no internet, and it was the only way to get the scoop on what games were coming out and which ones were likely to be good, and which ones were probably skippable dog shit. Going back To one of my earlier points, the studios knew the level of power that these journalists had, and knew the only way to get a good review out of them was to make sure their game was top-notch. Compare that with today, with the likes of fake-ass, paid-off morons such as Kotaku and IGN. You can tell when they're not being honest, and are paid to say exactly what the developer told them to say, and much in the same way the mainstream media in the West is the enemy to the people, these bot shills have quite literally become the enemy of the gamers. So few of them have any experience playing any games at all, let alone interest in playing most of them, don't give a fuck about gamers or the hobby overall, and their platform is used to spew their own political propaganda. Very rarely do you see these modern game journalists talk about the gameplay, the graphics, the control feel, and storylines, and instead opt to complain about how not every minority and mentally unstable group is properly represented in the game, how the woman's tits are too big, and how all white men should die. Which brings me to my final and probably one of the most damning reasons.
Reason 5. Get woke, go broke.
Oh boy. Could I ever go on a rant about this shit forever? But I'll keep it as brief as possible. Let's do a little riddle. What do you get when you take a consumer base primarily made up of young to middle-aged males and then start changing your products to ridicule their gender, sexuality, race, and core beliefs and fantasies?
Police, get what you fucking deserve!
Much like the shareholders, the journalists, and many of the other talentless hacks left within the modern game industry, the woke morons that have invaded the game design industry share the same major trait. They don't know about, nor give a single fuck about, video games. Nor do they understand why they are played. Time after time after time over the past decade or so, we've seen franchise after franchise get brutally destroyed by these mind virus-infected buffoons, to the detriment of all involved. They lose jobs, and we lose beloved franchises and innovations, and studios, and new game IPs. It's no secret that games that pander to the brain-dead woke cult ideology are undisputed commercial failures at this point. Perfect examples? Dustborn, Concord, Dragon Age Veilguard, Flintlock, Suicide Squad, Star Wars Outlaws, etc. Just complete piles and utter propaganda that nobody is interested in playing. Contrast that with games that had no woke bullshit in it and were just solid games, and it's obvious to see where players actually want to play and what they actually care about. Games such as Elden Ring, Black Myth Wukong, Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, Baldur's Gate 3, Ghost of Tsushima, just to name a few. Look, I get that art of all kinds has always been a medium throughout human history to portray messages over time with some political and societal undertones, but it's usually always subtle and nuanced. But you would have to be completely brain dead to not see how hard these woke ideologues attempt to shove their nonsensical, shitty worldviews down our throats with their trash games right from the time you boot the game up. Luckily, the phrase, "get woke, go broke," definitely has been proven true, with these studios and their games biting the dust one after another and putting those that made them and greenlit them right where they belong, in the unemployment line.
Damn!
Believe what you want. I don't care. But don't try to force your views on everyone else through a beloved medium as you attempt to take the rest of humanity down with you.
Well done, Master Raziel. What is your conclusion?
And thus we see why the games these days are all so bad, and why these studios instead have resorted to remaking and remastering as many beloved classics as possible, because they have no other way to avoid bankruptcy. They know those games sold like hotcakes when they were new, and since they have run off nearly every gamer and talented creative person within their own ranks because of the 5 aforementioned points, they have no other thing to resort to than to milk the same games that did well, sometimes even decades ago, again, in order to stay relevant in the industry. Now, I know that nostalgia is a powerful thing, and new ideas are hard to come by. And that is definitely one thing these psychiatrists and research team-backed shareholders and publishers do understand. We are all a bunch of abused Stockholm Syndrome having suckers, myself included. And this crap will all continue until we let the classics stay classics in the past that we can replay when we wish, and demand that the studios get the resources and people necessary to create the new masterpieces we all deserve. And we do this with our own wallets, instead of simping for rehashed remakes and remasters. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. This is what my research has yielded. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Comments down below. Do you wish they would just stop remastering games and actually start coming up with some original ideas? I mean, it's definitely possible, right? You would hope so. But anyway, guys, keep in mind I am streaming again on Twitch. Sometimes I stream on Twitch and YouTube simultaneously. When I don't stream on YouTube, I upload the best moments of the VOD here on YouTube, so you can take a gander if you're not interested in going to Twitch. I stream on Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Please, if you like my content, like it, share it. If you don't, thumbs down. And tell me to go fuck myself, you know? Like I said before, I've probably already taken care of that by about noon this day of recording this. But anyway, guys, comments down below, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, I gotta get out of here. Make sure that I dispose of all this AI shit so nobody can trace what I've discovered back to me. Catch you guys later. Keep it real.
Self-destruct sequence activated.
Shut the fuck up. No one cares about your robot fan fiction. Know your fucking place, trash. Fucking robots. I don't give a fuck about no robots. They ain't got no soul.